Hello everyone and welcome to another Pointless Talk Show. Jordan's gone forever, so woohoo! So I am here with my dear friend, who has been my friend forever, almost. 5 years. That's forever, right?
Pretty much forever, yeah.
And she, because she wishes to hide her name, wishes to go by Rowyn. So we will call her Rowyn, which I'm going to be spelling out like across the screen right now. And just start timer there so I don't bore you. So I meant to talk about it a long time ago around Halloween because it would have been spoopy and I could have done it because, well, I couldn't have done it. That's the thing. I didn't do it because I couldn't have done it because I was too busy at school and everything and other things. But for Halloween, my mom and I went to the town in Kansas where we both live of Atchison. So Atchison, Kansas is known for being the most haunted town in Kansas, and the most, I wouldn't say haunted, but most condensed haunting town. And let me explain this because I'll have to start explaining it. Because my only picture that I took from this town, because I was an idiot, is from... Are you laughing at me?
Why wouldn't I be?
Yeah, I know, I'm an idiot. But don't worry, next year I'm going back, and I'm going to take pictures of everything. But I did two things. First, I did the history tour to understand the history of the town, which was really cool, and it took us by, told us history of the town and how many times their graveyard moved, which was 3. But so they took us to certain places that were haunted, and they explained the history behind the hauntings. So they took us by the Clay Mansion, and this is where I believe it's the first place. Yeah, it's the first place where their graveyard once was. And then they moved it one more time, and then they moved it finally again. And they weren't very good at, let's just say, they weren't very good at exhuming the bodies from this first place. And guess what? At the second place that they had it, which is just a field now, they also did 1, 2, skip a few. So, yeah.
Under the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? But the bad thing about Clay Mansion is that they built a giant mansion over their graveyard.
Good. Yay! Don't want to live there.
Actually, there was a family that lived there, and they turned it into it's a museum now. So, and the family that lived there, the Clays, still live there. And I took a picture of the, I believe it's the tower. And it's like the 3rd story on the tower, and this was when the guy was explaining what was going on the 3rd floor, which he said, it was mostly aggressiveness on the 3rd floor. No one goes up there because you will get thrown. He explained it, and we called him, his name was Bob, so everyone called him Haunted Bob, because he, did the investigations and stuff. Or at least, yeah. So he told us, you'll get thrown. In the living room of the Clay Mansion, they said that stuff will just get thrown at you for no good reason. So he said they're very aggressive sometimes. And he's like, on the 3rd floor, you're just lucky to not get hit with something. But he was lovely. I loved him. He was a nice man. But while he's explaining the story, I'm just la-la-la on my iPhone, just reaching out, looking up this 3rd story window, and just snap! And then I kind of, as he's walking away, because he was talking and walking at the same time, and I was like, oh crap, I can't stay, I gotta follow him, so I just kind of ran back to him. And later I found something on the thing, so I was like, oh, there. Yeah, and you've seen this picture, but since people will be like, Isaac, it's not a real ghost. I'm gonna be non-fun. So, I will gladly show you my original picture which they'll probably be seeing right now once I edit this video, and then I will enhance it, which means I'm going to turn on grayscale and do a bunch of crazy things to this picture that I've already done prior to show someone. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on this spot so you can kind of maybe see it, and then guess what? For those people who are still like, I can't see it, I'll outline it for you. There it is. Merry Christmas, because it is Christmas, basically. It's the 27th. So,
Goodness.
I'm sorry, we're talking about creepy stuff around Christmas, but that's okay, because I love this thing, because I'm going back next year, and I'm really excited about it, but that was the only history tour, and of course, when I say condensed hauntings, if you just walked down the street from this place, you would see the teacup, what they call the teacup house, or the teacup manor, and it's this giant Victorian-looking house that a ghost, apparently, like, the family that owned it was coming back from St. Louis, and they were, like, 3 hours out, and the wife says, oh, it would be lovely to come home and have a nice cup of tea. Well, when they get home, the husband smells the aroma of tea brewing, and then they both hear the whistling of the tea kettle go off, and when they walk into the kitchen or the dining room or wherever they walked into, I can't remember the whole story, they saw a teacup set up with the spoon and sugar and everything out, and then the tea was ready for them to have tea. And my mom... Yeah.
I would totally drink it.
Yeah, I would drink it. I mean, it's tea. No tea is bad. But my mom looked over at me and says in the nicest manner, and she says this all the time, and I really hate how she puts it. She's like, oh, then Isaac, you wouldn't have to be the butler and make the tea. Your ghost friends could. And I was like, okay, great, thanks. Thanks for putting me up with ghost friends, thanks. But, yeah, she loves me. Oh, why, Mom? Okay, so, anyway, and of course, if you don't know, I'm going to inform you that you should go to Atchison not only for the history, but for the ghosts, and also and I'm going to say this because it's not true, but I think it's true. It can be arguably the most haunted house in all of the United States. This house is called the Sallie House, and gladly enough, I went twice that day. And I'm going to... Because I needed to get I told you, I needed to get a feel for the house during the day, and I went during the day around, like the one, because they have, like, you know, when you can walk throughout the house, and there was a 1 to 3 period, in the afternoon that I went, and we only stayed there for about an hour and 30 minutes, so almost the whole time, and I went, and my mom and we went, and it was amazingly hilarious, because I was walking throughout the house being like, do you feel that? And my mom would be like, no, I don't feel it. So, it was kind of funny to do that to my mother. But I would walk throughout the house, and I was getting the feel of everything, and, you know, it was completely normal. It felt like a normal house. Like, it felt like I was walking through my house, you know, it was bright and cheery and homey, and, you know, the Sallie House it's a nice house if you're starting out, kind of like the Pickmans who owned the house before they, you know, they said, you know, it was a nice starter house, and it really is, because you've got the bedroom, the master bedroom, then you've got a guest bedroom, then you've got the nursery, which they turned into a nursery. It could have been another bedroom. So you have these, you know, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a kitchen, and a basement, and it's a really nice house. But it's horribly haunted, so... So, beyond the point. So, I went during the day, and I went into the basement, of course, which is the most haunted spot in the house, they say, because of the demons and all that. And if you want to do your own research, I'll give you some websites that I researched from in the description. So, that's great. But I went into the basement during the day, and there was a guy down there with a ghost box, which is this magical device, and I think I explained it to you, but I'll explain it again. It's this little device that's like a black box, and what he did is he had it on his iPhone, and it basically is a radio signal, and it goes through a bunch of different radio stations, and it allows the ghost or the entity to have, to speak through these stations. And he was asking questions. So Mom and I were because we watched Ghost Hunters and all that stuff. We went down there and we were having fun, and and he says, "Oh, you want to see something cool?" And of course, dumb me goes, "Yes, I want to see something cool. I'm here to see someone get the pants scared off of them." So he freaking says, this wonderful, nice person that I love so much. And these people are very nice. They respect, the spirits, and they try not to anger them or anything. So he says, "Hello, are you there?" And of course through the box, and what the box does is when it talks, it's like how he explained it is it's like a toddler. It's like when a human being is trying to, form words, making, syllables. So but here's the thing. When I was down there and I could hear it, and even the guy even said he could hear it, but there was several voices speaking at once, and there was a very low one that seemed to lead the whole group. Which was a little bit scary, but still, don't be scared. Just go down there, and expect to have something happen. So I went down there, and he says, "Are you there?" And of course, there's a bunch of whispering going on, in the background of the smaller voices, and then one big low voice comes in and says, "I'm here." And he goes, "Okay," and he's like, "Can you," and there were other people in the room, so it wasn't just me and my mom, so it wasn't as scary as one would think. But he says, "Can you name the name of someone in this room?" And it starts, splatting words, syllables, and it says, my name, but it's very choppy, chop chop, syllables, and it says my full name, which I'm not going to say on here, which was a bit scary because no one in that room other than my mother knew my full name, and it was just my first and my last. It wasn't my middle, so I'm great. I'm fine with that. But it was just a bit weird. So it said all my name, and then he says, "Okay, and who's this person next to him?" Which was my mom. And it instantly, without, and I told you this story, without any trying, instantly, someone in the group, not the deeper, darker voice, says it, and I'm not going to say her name here, because I love my mom. Just says it, clear out, nothing hard, just says it. And my mom's like, "Oh." The guy starts laughing. He's like, "I love people when and the reaction they have." And my mom's like, "That was weird." So, all this stuff happened during the day, and I got a feel for the house, and I felt some weird things going on, because there's upstairs, there's a closet. There's a small little closet space in the master bedroom. And I felt something, in there, and it was different corners of the room had a different feeling, and I could tell what was there. So it was and then I told you about the divining rods, and let me say to everybody, because whoever doesn't know, just stop it. I'm going to tell you, don't use divining rods. They're just as bad as Ouija boards. Ouija boards are not good, and they aren't a viable way of communication like these divining rods, because you can get possessed through these magical items, because the spirit is actually using it to communicate, and you're having a physical connection with the spirit, and that's why people get possessed all the time. So, to save y'all, I'm going to say, don't do it. Even the people there were telling me, "Okay, don't do this at home, just do it away from the home, don't do it at your house." And I said, "Okay," and they said, "It's okay if you're doing it here, but if you go home, don't do it at your house where you live." And at first I was like, "Oh, okay, that's fine." So I did it during the day, and I was asking all these questions, and it was fun because, I'd say, "Okay, show me yes," and they would cross, and it's, divining rods are basically these little wooden or metal, depending on what you're using, but I was using coat hangers, so it would, you'd hold them apart, and they're 2 sticks, and you'd say, "Okay, show me yes," and they'd cross, and then I'm like, "Okay," And I said very kindly, could you please set it back to no, or set it back to just normal? And it went, sets back, and I'm like, oh, okay. And Mom looks at me, and I'm like, I'm not moving. She's like, I know you aren't, I can see. And, and I was like, okay. And I was like, are there spirits here? And of course it crosses, and I'm like, okay, great, can you set it back? And then it sets back, and I'm like, okay, that's great. And then I'm asking questions, and then by the end of the time, I asked all the questions I wanted, and I was like, okay. And I'm like, I'm done. And I'm like, so, of course, following, being etiquette like I am, I talk to ghosts and things as if they're a real person. And I show the utmost respect to them because I know they can own me and follow me home. So I'd rather be nice to them so they stay in their home and not follow me. So I say, okay, yeah. So I'm like, okay, thank you for answering my questions. And it crossed again. I'm like, oh, that's nice. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put these down and I'll be here tonight. And so it crossed again and then went back to normal. So I put it down and very swiftly walked away. But I'm sorry. It's really weird. They're really weird things. But so later that night, I came back about 5, around 6 or 7, and everybody was sitting in. And there's an actual like ghost hunting group that they investigate like every Friday, Saturday, of the year. And so they've been here forever. So the ghosts know them. And weirdly enough, when I sat in the house, it felt a ton different than during the day. So like heavy oppressive feeling. So like you could feel a difference. It was different. And like, and it felt not as like homey, but like you knew more people were there. It felt more crowded, So and we started off and we went with a group, and we went with a younger guy, and his name, I think I can say his name without, trouble. His name was Rowyn. I don't know the girl that was with us, but I know she was one of the leaders because the leaders was, I think, a brother and sister, but don't quote me. So we were with the leader, sister, and then this kid named Rowyn. When I say kid, he's probably around my age, probably 20, 21. So we're sitting in the master bedroom, and I'm going to add a little, I'm going to show them where the master bedroom is and like show the outline of the house. And these pictures will come from something that I'll put in the description. So if you want to go see the actual pictures and read about it. But we were in the master bedroom, and there's that closet, from the day before. Well, I didn't think about it, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna leave it, and I'm not gonna do anything. Well, we were talking, and the light came on. Well, she set up a flashlight, so those twisty top flashlights, you twist the top, and then the top will come off. And you put the batteries in, and then you twist it. Is basically what they were using. So she twisted the top, and that's how you turn it on, is like you twist the bottom, or you twist the bottom to turn it on. Well, she twisted the bottom so that it was barely like off, so you could barely touch it and it would come on, but you had to still like push it. You still had to like actually have some force to push it to turn it on. And she just sat it down on the dresser and just kind of sits back, and the lights are still on. So she's like, okay, and she's just explaining like protocol, what to ask. You also, because they had not EMP, that's something different. That's electromagnetic field for you people. But they had an EVP, which stands for electro voice phenomenon. And they had an EVP recorder in there, which means you can ask questions and they'll pick up voices on it later. But when you ask a question, you can't whisper. So they were kind of, explaining the rules of that, and, So when she was explaining these rules, the flashlight came on, and the lights are in the room are on, and then she's like, oh, and she just kind of looks over, and everybody looks over, because we were all just talking, and we all look over, and the light's on, and then she goes, okay, thank you, can you turn that off? And the light goes off, and she's like, okay, and then she's like, Ryan, turn off the lights, and then he turns off the lights and sits down, and we're all quiet for a while, and then I'm like, okay, what happens now? And it's just this, like, really, really quiet. just like quiet happening. Nothing's going on. So of course, brave me. I like, go, okay, can you, are you still here? Can you turn the light on for us? And I said, and after that, of course, I said, please, because, and it turns on. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And then it slowly turns off. And the weird thing about this thing is, like, it wasn't just slow on, slow off, or it wasn't just like quick on, quick off. It was like slow on and slow off kind of movement. So it wasn't natural turning on light. So I was like, can you turn that off? And it went off. And I was like, thank you. And this went on for a long time. And the nice lady was like, okay. And after a while, it, stopped talking to us. So we were like, okay, we're going to go. Thank you for talking to us. And, we walked off and went into the nursery. And they explained, in the nursery, this happens. They went through the whole shebang, explained why they put the toys in a circle, which if you do watch, go and read up on this, you'll know why they put the toys in a circle. But I want you guys to read up on this as much as you can. So, they put the toys in a circle, and they put the recorder in the middle, and they put, like, the flashlight in the middle and everything. And they're like, hello, are you here? And the light, comes on. Then it goes off, and then we started asking it questions, but it wasn't answering to us for, like, the longest time. So we just started talking, normal people talk, what they did, why they got into it, what were they doing, this, that, and the other. And then outside of the bedroom door, which we had it shut, you just hear this, the floor creak, and this is an old house, so, it's an old house. And then they said,
I've just been settling.
Yeah, and I'm like, and they're like, okay, and they're like, is anybody there? And then you hear this, the floor moving, and then someone goes away, and they come out and they go like, is anyone here? And they scream, well, there's another group in the room that we just were, which is across the way. And they're like, so that guy, that wasn't you guys, the creaking? And they're like, no. And then they're like, well, someone was right outside your door. So we all just kind of went, okay, and then they're like, okay, we'll leave the door open so you can come in. So they left the door open, and, yeah, it's okay. No, they're nice people. The first 2 floors are nice people. The bottom floor, not so nice. So we, we're talking, and, stuff happened, like the light turned on a few times, but nothing substantial really happened. So we were like, okay, and it was a long time. Like, we sat in there for probably 30, 45 minutes, and we, started getting nothing. So we were like, okay, and then they said, even if you don't get anything, you need to thank them. So they were like, thank you for being here and at least turning the light on and standing outside the door for us. And they're like, we're sorry we didn't, they apologized for closing the door in their face, basically, and they're like, we're sorry. And then we got up and walked downstairs, and of course, somebody says, who would like to go into the basement, because my brother's down there. And that was the lady, the head lady. So I was like, okay, I'll go in the basement. And my mom and I and another guy, no, it was just my mom and I, and then her brother were in the basement. And we're sitting there, and he says, okay, show yourself. Like, it's, this brother, I swear, I don't like him. He scared me a lot, but he was like, okay, and he was just really brash, like, show yourself. And nothing happens. And I'm like, okay, and I look over at Mom, and of course the air down there is, like, hard to breathe in. It's, like, getting really hard to breathe down there for me. And my mom's just looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and he's like, stop cowering in the corners and show yourself. He's just, like, yelling at this thing, and I'm like, I don't think we should and I look at him, and I'm like, I don't think we should yell at it. And he's just looking over at me, and I'm like, okay. So I'm just, leaving him to do it. He's been doing this more than I have. I'm a newbie. So I'm just like, you should stop yelling at it. This dark being that's probably been here longer than me and you, and will be here longer than us. And I'm like, we shouldn't be yelling at something that's unknown and that we don't know will come and haunt us in our life, and yada yada yada. So as he's yelling at this thing to show itself, do things, like, there were balls and stuff in the basement, so, like, there was a little ball tied onto a string that was hung on, like, I think it was, like, the coal burner or something that was down there. so like a furnace or whatever. And he said, why don't you move this tiny ball? And my mom sees it and goes, oh, it's a tiny ball. It should be easy for it to move. And so now she's being like, yeah, move this tiny ball. And like not yelling at it, but she's like urging it on. And I'm like, and I'm just looking at her going like, don't do that, don't do that. While this is going on, I'm feeling like stuff on my back, like at first it was like, and I won't lie, I was wearing my miraculous medals because I was an idiot. Because, in the morning you're like, well, I put them on in the morning. I'm like, oh, I'm going to this place. I'll just put them on like I normally do. Well, that was a stupid idea. So, I'm in the basement with the demons, and I'm just standing there. And, of course, before in the afternoon, the guy asked, he asked, what are you wearing? And I said, oh, it's miraculous medals. And he's like, oh, so they have names of saints and stuff. And he sees this as a great opportunity to ask the demon if it could name any names. Well, it could not. So, haha. But anyway... Besides that, he says, I feel something touching it, like pressing down, like not hard at first, but it's like, little pokes at it, like trying to grab it or something. And I'm like, okay, I don't like this. And the guy is like looking at me, and I'm like stepping away from the wall because I first thought, okay, it's a spider. I gotta step away from the wall. Well, I moved away from the wall a little bit, shimmy a little bit away from the wall, and it keeps going, and it's just touching my, up at my neck. So I shimmy away a little bit more, and he's looking at me while I'm doing this like an idiot, and then it starts, going down my back, and it's like touching on my spine, and and I'm just like kind of moving around like, okay, spider, get off, it's time to get off. And he's just like looking at me, and I'm like, and he's like, what's wrong? He just says it blankly, like, what's wrong? I'm like, I think there's something on my back. And he shines his flashlight on it, and he's like, oh, nothing's there. And I'm like, just, and I was like, and I'm like, can you, and I'm like, and he just like waves his magic like wand thing. It's like a EMP, not EMP. Yes, EMF. Sorry, I'm getting my things mixed up. But it's like an EMF field detector, but it's like on a stick. So he's like waving this around my back, and he's like, nothing's there. And I'm like, okay, sure, And so we go back, and I'm like, okay. And my mom and this guy are still saying, show yourself, do this, do that. And I'm just standing here, and I'm like, okay, guys, we need to stop asking it to do things, because it's clearly doing something. Y'all just don't feel it. And I'm just standing there, and now it's like forcibly pushing, not like hard, but I can notice it. It feels like little thumbs pressing into my back, like all over it now. And I'm like, okay, guys, stop. And they just both look at me. I'm like, there is seriously something on my back. I don't like it. And at this time, it starts, clipping again at the miraculous metals, which are around a chain. And they're just clipping at the chain. And I like, and it's going like, they're going from like halfway back of my neck. So like, and they're going to the back of my neck. And they're like pecking at it. I'm like, guys, I really don't like this. And then he sees this, the chain, and he's like, well, what's on that chain? And I'm like, metals. And he just looks at me, and he's like, holy metals? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, okay, we need to get out. And I'm like, and I kind of just, when we were upstairs, I looked at him, and I looked at his sister, and I looked at him, and she's like, what happened? And he's like, he's wearing a miraculous, he's wearing this, and it was pecking at it, and it was, and he felt pressure on his back, and this, that, and the other. And she's like, and you didn't do anything. And there was like a brother-sister, little quarrel thing going on. And I'm like, I'm really angry right now. Like, I'm just like, it's not fun. It's not fun when I'm the one of ridicule and everyone else is like, there's nothing there. So I'm just like, whatever. And she's like, would you like to go upstairs into the room that we started in? And I said, that would be lovely. I want to get as far away from the basement as humanly possible. And she says, okay. And then we went upstairs, and I went in the room again. And by this time, they had a flashlight in the closet, and they had a flashlight out in the, in the main area. So she's asking it questions like, oh, are you male, are you female? And, it's lighting up on male, and it's answering questions. And now the light in the closet's going on and off, and I'm like, oh, and I said, so you in the closet, and then it just stops, it goes off, and I'm like, were you there when I was here this afternoon? And it slowly comes on, and I'm like, okay, that's great, thank you, can you turn that off? And it just instantly shuts off, and I'm like, okay, thank you, that was a little bit too quick, and then it comes back on and goes back off slower. So I was like, so, how many are you, I'm asking it, like, how many of you are here? And it turns on, like, turns on saying, yes, we're here, but, like, and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, is there 2 of you? And it just kind of, like, sits there for the longest time, and then I'm like, okay, so is there 1 of you? And then it comes on. I'm like, okay, so you're controlling both lights. And then both lights turn on at the same time. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, so can you, and of course at this time the lady goes, okay, we can use this for communication. And she's like, can you turn one on? And it turns the one outside off. And I'm like, and she's like, okay, this is yes. This light is yes. Now can you turn on the other one for no? And it turns on. And then she's like, okay, that's great. Can you turn them both off? And then they both kind of turn off. And she's like, okay. And she's like, so are you, are you a teenager? And it kind of, it waits for a while, and then it turns on yes. And then she's like, okay, so are you, excuse me, I just burped there. But she says, are you, like, the age of 15, like, 13 to 15? And it doesn't go. And she's like, okay, 15 to 17. And then it doesn't go. And then she's like, okay, 17 to 21. Just to, throw it off. And then it turns on yes. And she's like, okay. And she goes, are you 15? Nothing goes on. And she goes up to basically, like, I think it was 20. No, it was 21. She got to 21, and it turned on. So she's like, okay, so you're 21, and it turns on again. And so, because I'm going to go way overboard on this one, and it's okay, I really wanted to do a long talk on this. I'm sorry, I was excited as you were. But it was just like, this whole thing going there, like, at first I was like, okay, these are things that I shouldn't mess around with. But at the end I was like, okay, I can still, like, ask it questions and it won't kill me. So, but I mean, like, at the same time, I watched people on YouTube that went to the Sallie House. And they were in the basement, like, yelling, like, more than the guy, and, more than the guy that was down there, like, yelling at it to show itself. And I'm like, yeah, no. And then it was also using Ouija boards and things like that. Now, I'll give them that. They didn't just use the Ouija board, they used the ghost box and things like that. But still, Ouija boards are no good. Please don't use Ouija boards.
Very scary.
Yeah, please don't use Ouija boards as a viable way to communicate with demons, children. Thank you.
Very scary.
Yeah. No. So, also the divining rods are a no. I'm not going to use them anymore. Those were scary too, but at the time it was more like for convenience, not really convenience, but like, it was like, oh, it's making it go. It was like this fascination. But I'm done with it. I'm not using it. So, just what to learn from this. Don't yell at beings that have been here for, as the ghost box said when I asked how old are you, or how long have you been here is what I asked, and it said years. So let's just assume years is a good rounded number, instead of a very vague pronoun game. So, let's just assume years is years before we are even here, and years after we are even here. So, seeing that this thing will live forever, let's not fuck with it.
Yes, exactly.
So, just remember, kids, don't fuck with demons, or angels of any kind.
It's like big animals. If you can't deal with it, don't mess with it.
Let's just avoid big animals and big, invisible beings altogether. Let's just not mess with them.
Can't deal with it, don't mess with it.
Yeah. Let's just not play with it. Just Be very respectful of it if you are a new ghost hunter and you go out and you do this stuff. Be respectful of the living and the dead. Don't anger anything and don't piss them off. So that was a good 35-minute speech about why we should not piss off things. Oh, jeez.
What?
There was just a big... I think you pressed your phone. But anyway, it was just a big noise that came out on my end. So that was a good pointless talk show that lasted for 35 minutes. I might have to separate it. But that's fine. We can separate it. That's fine. I don't know. I might keep it going. I don't know. So but it's a special because you're here. We're introducing you to the magical world of the Minecast.
Yay!
And next time we'll decide on something a bit easier to explain and to talk through instead of talking for like 30 minutes. So, thank you for joining me and talking about scary things and things that'll scar me for life, even though next year I plan on going back, and I might take you, depending on if you can pay for yourself, because it's like $30 to do it.
Totally.
So, yeah, and you'd be waking up really early, because we had to leave. We had to leave like at 4. No, like at 5. We left at around 5, and we got up there around, whatever. But, yeah. So, that's a lovely talk show that we just did. A lovely 36-minute talk show. I promise the next one will be much shorter. And I will definitely say, leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. Also, go check the information out about this house if you will plan on visiting it sometime. And it's only open around Halloween time. And if you go to, I think it's hauntedatchison.org or something like that. I'll have that in the description too. But it tells the times of different things, and of course there's like the historic stuff. So like Amelia Earhart, who lived there, and things like that. So, just go, and it's a lovely little town, and when I mean little, I mean, yeah, it's little, but it's a nice town. It's a nice sized town, but it's full of history stuff, so if you're into history and stuff like that, go see it. It's lovely. It's lovely. Yeah, so, again, like, comment, and subscribe, and leave comments because I plan on reacting to these comments someday. Soon. I want to. It'd be fun.
And I'll be laughing at you.
Yeah, I know you will, because you already said most of my stuff was cringeworthy, which I agree with you. But I don't care. People love it, and I love doing it. So that's all that matters, kids. If you love doing something, do it. Don't let anyone tell you off. Rowyn.
And life is extremely dangerous.
Well, that's the ghost hunting with demons, not the creating YouTube videos. So, thank you everybody, and goodbye. This is also... Yay, you did it! I don't have to tell